Namaste. Welcome to our 28th talk on the Gita. We are ready for the 24th verse of the 5th chapter. He whose happiness is within, whose delight is within, whose illumination is within. So there's happiness. Sukha is the word. It means ease of being comfortable and being at peace and yes, quiet happiness. Delight is more. It is an enjoyment. It is a feeling of anand, of bliss. And illumination is within. In other words, he sees clearly, but he sees with the inner eye. So we can come to understand tremendous things about the world. I once read an article about a man that gave his whole life to the study of how oysters and clams knew to open their shells when the tide was going to come in. I was kind of appalled. I thought, that's what the life is going to be. Even if he discovered it, what importance would it be? So the yogi should never have small goals. So he whose happiness is within, whose delight is within, whose illumination is within, that yogi, identical in being with Brahman. Now, there are a lot of people, you can just take a drug, it gives you euphoric feeling. So you will have happiness and delight, but not illumination. You won't really see. Although there are people that they take drugs and then think they really see reality. That yogi, identical in being with Brahman, that is the essence. One with your own true self. It isn't like, oh, I wasn't once identical with Brahman. Now I've become. No, we have been eternally. And we've forgotten ourselves. And that person then attains Brahma Nirvana. Nirvana comes from the expression nirbandha, no bondage. You see a lot of our English words have Sanskrit roots. No binding, no ties. In other words, no imprisonment in the world and no coercion, being held back. Nothing to impede our going to the highest goal. And this is Brahma Nirvana. It is the release from all bonds in infinite freedom itself. And that's what we need to really think about ourselves. Okay, how much within am I? How much of my life is within? You see, an evolved person's life is more interior than exterior. Now, they have an exterior life, but in a sense, they interiorize it. That is, they take it in and digest it, and it becomes a part of their bhava, a part of their state of mind, their state of vision, their perspective. It isn't just, I like that, I didn't like that, or I went here, I went there. No. Every experience, really, whether we realize it or not, leaves us different than we were before. Not drastically necessarily, but somewhat. And the yogi, though, really takes it in the steadiness of his consciousness and absorbs it, assimilates it, and makes it with him. And even though we would say, well, the outside life isn't what's really real, but the inside life is. Yes, but the yogi comes to experience the reality of even what is unreal. In other words, he sees through to the reality that's behind the illusion, the dream. He understands. I remember just very soon after I started trying to be a yogi, I had very little instruction, but I sat every day, twice a day if I could, for meditation and did what little I was taught. And the word little could not be exaggerated, it was very little. But I found that it affected my sleep, affected my dreams. And I would say it was just the second or third night after I'd started meditation, I was dreaming and I was walking with some people, and it was on kind of a road, not a street in the town. And there were these marvelous trees on each side of the road, and the sky was there. It was beautiful and serene. And so I said to someone who was walking next to me, just think, this is all just in my own mind. We're not really walking down this road. This road doesn't exist, but my mind has created and projected it, and so I'm experiencing it. And so all of this, look at the leaves on the trees, look at the details of everything. This is in my mind and is created by my mind. What an amazing thing. Then I woke up and realized, well, that's pretty smart of me. Yes, that is the way it is. So you see, the yogi should study books. The yogi should be a book reader. The idea that don't read books and don't get caught in intellect. The only way not to get caught in intellect is to meditate. Rejecting intelligent productions of ideas, rejecting learning is stupidity of the grossest and most indefensible sort. So those who claim to be yogis who do that, like I remember, because I belong to a yoga cult, that some faithful yoga cultists came to visit me, and I had actually, it was kind of a cupboard thing that I kept books in. And horror of horrors, I actually had a dozen books. And do you know, they really went at me about, why are you doing this? And you know very well you can't get there by reading and you can't get there by philosophy. And I mean, these people acted ridiculous, rudely, of course, carrying on at me for having all those books, and there were a dozen of them. This is idiotic. The great sages of India produced hundreds of books, hundreds of texts. And a wise person will read and will study. Yes, he will seek for real realization, of course. He will seek for insight, but he will never intellectually stagnate and go to seed and say, oh, I don't need that anymore. I have met these transcendent people all of my life, and they all just crack up somewhere along the line and then start saying, oh, it's all just a bunch of nonsense. It doesn't mean anything. And that's the end of them, at least for this incarnation. So this is also foolish. You have to be an informed person. But if you've got a guru who's an ignoramus and is scared of you learning more than he knows, and maybe even mentioning that he or she has made a mistake in what they've said, well, then, it's death to unmask the worthlessness of the guru. That's why it was such a relief to read Sri Gajanana Maharaj and him talking about fake yogis and fake yoga. It was wonderful. It was liberating because that's almost all I'd ever encountered was fake yogis and fake yoga. And oh, it's all wonders, it's all right. And after all that, we're all going on the same path, though they look differently. And my good sense told me it wasn't true. So, thanks to Maharaj, I was able to use my good sense and be glad I had it and glad I could use it. All right. The seers whose evils have been annihilated, wiped out, they're not there, not put down way back in our mind to come up later and get us, come up later and bite us. But they're gone, they're no more, and they can't rise anymore. That's what's very important. Not suppressed. And the very capacity for them has also been eliminated. Whose doubts have been dispelled. Many people pretend they have no doubts, and of course, they're riddled with doubts. That's why they're the ones who say, "Oh, did you meet my girl? What did you think of my girl?" They want to be assured Guruji is a wonderful thing, you say. Whose inner being is mastered. I have met people who could do amazing hatha yoga postures. I mean, remarkable things. There was a man from Belgium who came to Shivananda Ashram, and he had just read Shivananda's books. He'd never had a single hatha yoga teacher. And he did a hatha yoga demonstration that was like nothing I've ever seen before, because he went into this posture and then slowly into another and then into another. He never like did this posture and then stopped and did another one. It was like a beautiful dance, like a ballet. And I mean, he just went from one to the other. He even went to where he was standing on his head and he was in lotus posture. And he was able to, to bring his legs like that and then like that. And it was just truly phenomenal to see how he was able to do that. And it was wonderful. But it's the postures, the asanas, the conditions and higher states of the inner mind that we really have to master. We have to master all those things. Just the ability to fix the mind on a spot. That's a capacity that only real sadhana produces. Real sadhana produces the real fixing of the mind. There is just a lower fixing. But if we're not in touch with the higher part of ourselves, we can't work with it, can we? It's obvious. So his inner being is mastered. And this is very interesting because this is all very inside. It says, who rejoices in the welfare of all beings. So it's not a self involved person. There are a lot of people who hate meditation, period, and they hate the idea of anybody getting anywhere and having inner development. And so they rave on about how selfish meditation is. I mean, I've had them go at me. When you live in the West, you're sure to come across those people. Well, it's just selfish and it's just ego worship and so on. Blah, 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 blah. Just listen, get out as quickly as you can, but just be nice, nice, nice. Don't lie and say, oh, you're right. But you just, or say, you know, I don't like talking about things like this because they're really very subtle. Say something like that. And then go away. But we do care. A yogi cares about the world more than anyone else because a yogi is aware that he's part of the world. See, there's a certain level where we never touch it, and another level where we are part of it. And again, as I've said more than once, if you can't think in two opposite directions at the same time, Sanatana Dharma is just not for you. And yoga isn't then, really. That's how it goes. These divine paradoxes that are actually realization, stages of realization. So the yogi does care. Now, the yogi may not go out and march with banners and talk and get involved in social justice. This is often uh, the first step for people who are leaving yoga and going to just go after the world that they've always secretly been wanting anyway. But anyway, the seers whose evils have been annihilated, whose doubts have been dispelled, whose inner being is mastered, who rejoice in the welfare of all beings, attain Brahman Nirvana. Released from desire and anger. Now, that's a very wonderful verb. Released. The things which once caused desire and aversion, hatred and like, can't touch us anymore. They can't push us or pull us anymore. So, in a sense, they've released us. They've let go, symbolically speaking. So we're free from it. In the little Protestant church I belonged to, people were very, very serious about their spiritual life. Of course, they didn't have very sophisticated knowledge. But they had a wonderful song. And it said, "Oh, if you offered every earthly treasure, diamonds and pearls of the sea, then turning from them, I would gladly whisper, Christ has set me free." And the whole song was about this. I'm not bound anymore. I'm not glued to things anymore. I have freedom. Freedom is so much more than the ability to move from one place to another and vote. That's a good freedom, but the freedom we're destined for is a transcendental freedom. So, released from desire and anger, with thoughts controlled, those ascetics who know the self find very near to them the bliss of Brahman Nirvana. They can just touch it. And all they have to do is remember to do the japa, empowered by then their regular meditation. And it's always right there. Things can distract our mind and things can upset us, or we can stub our toe and it hurts bad. But the moment, so so that quiet bliss. Bliss is not like, oh, I won. It's quiet. It's steady because it's natural. So we'll find very near. It's just that we don't reach out and touch it. Excluding outside context. Now, this is describing meditation. Excluding outside contacts. Close your eyes. Don't really need to put in earplugs. Then you'll hear all those sounds inside your ears that will distract you. But if you need it because neighbors are playing ridiculous music, put in those earplugs. Turning up the eyes between the two brows, all right? You come when reading things about yoga with the word mudra. Mudra means shape or really position, okay? And there are different kind of mudras. In Hatha Yoga, the mudras are physical postures, whether it's lotus posture, whether it's the plow posture, Garudasana, whatever, they are bodily positions. And they work with the endocrine system and they can be very good and very good for your health. So please do not think I'm disparaging that. Then there are the tantric mudras. The tantric mudras are very involved. They're like this Chen mudra, Ankusha mudra, this kind of thing. They too work with subtle pranas, but one is bodily position, then there is hand position. In real yoga, the mudras are of the eyes. Those of you who have seen the photograph of Yogiraj Shyamachara Lahiri, or Lahiri Mahashai, and have seen his real photograph, not the one that's been painted over. In Autobiography of a Yogi, in most of the later editions, his face has been actually painted on by Sananda Ghosh, Yoganandaji's younger brother. And therefore, you don't see it at all. But although it's a little blurry, that 19th century photograph, that's what you need. That's what you should be looking at. In a room upstairs, we have large pictures of various holy people, and we have one of Lahiri Mahashai. It's a large, I'd say it's about 20 inches high, of that original untouched photograph. And it's amazing to look at. And because we meditate there, it's very, very alive. Now, what he didn't just come out, sit down, and say, okay, snap my photo. In that photograph, he is demonstrating what's called Shambhavi Mudra. This is an eye position where the eyes are not up, the eyes are not down, but they are very straight ahead, and yet the eyelids are almost closed. And if a person holds that mudra, or Shambhavi, it means same in all bhavas, same in all situations. In other words, it's how to make the mind so that it can't be made out of balance or pushed here or pushed there. Shambhavi, it's very important. Now then, the Hatha yogis have an absurd practice by which they can knock themselves unconscious. I'll explain more. I'm not just saying that. See, if you counteract the normal polarities in the body, you get either kind of a cataclysmic effect or you get a complete reversal, you get a complete stagnation of the process. All right. Now, for example, you see here's the point between the eyebrows. Of course, the real chakra is opposite here in the back of the head, the Ajna chakra. The back of the head has a positive polarity. This point is negative. Now, in the town where I lived, we had a Pentecostal church. If you don't know what it means, just say they were very demonstrative and they felt the Holy Spirit came in and talked through them, et cetera, et cetera. And they had a very popular minister and who they felt had God's power. So at one point in their church service, they would come up one by one in front of him, and he would take his hands and he'd put one palm behind their head and one palm, you see, one behind, here in front, and hold them. But he did it, whichever palms he did, I never witnessed him, it was of opposite polarity. So it confused the polarity and knocked him out cold. And the Pentecostals have a term called slain in the Lord, where you just go out unconscious. Why? We're unconscious enough. Why God would want to, the Holy Spirit would want to knock us unconscious, I don't know. And for example, the first time I went in the church, I thought it was amazing because usually in any church, the front row is just, say, maybe, I don't know, 6 feet or so back from the platform on which the minister stands when he speaks. And this, it was a big area. And that was because they had a different minister now. He didn't do that. But in the earlier times, it was where all these people would be laid after he knocked them out. people would stand behind them. You see, he'd touch them, they'd fall back unconscious, they'd haul them off to the side like logs, and then they'd all be lying in the aisles, and they considered that a great, great spiritual experience. Okay, so the Hatha yogis do the same. They cut sort of strings or cords underneath the tongue so it can come out much further than usual. And then they literally put out the tongue and they massage it so they make the tongue longer and longer and longer. And then they put the tongue up, they touch the tongue, the back of their mouth, and then they put it up into that cavity and bring it forward to here, and it knocks them out cold. As considered a very, very great yogic accomplishment. But you see, that's Virochana yoga. There, and I realize now I've gone beyond my time. It says that the demons, the king of the demons, that they went to Brahma, he and Indra, Lord of the gods, and they said, "What is the self?" And he gave them this explanation, which was worthless. But they both figured, well, he told us it's true. Well, on the way home, Indra thought, this isn't true at all. It can't be. That can't be the self. Because what Brahma did, he said, look in a mirror. They looked in a mirror. What do you see? Well, we see ourselves. We even see our fingernails. We see our nose. That's the self. So Virochana went back to the demons and said, your body is your true self. And that's all there is to it. Indra realized that wasn't so. He went back. Brahma gave him a little more subtle definition. And then again, he thought, well, it can't be. Till finally, Brahman gives him the real truth. So Virochana yoga is yoga which is of the body completely. So they've knocked themselves totally unconscious. Now, in real yoga, as I have said, the mudras are eye position, Shambhavi mudra being one, and Kechari Mudra, which means skywalking mudra. Isn't that interesting? Bha, the expanse, it's walking there. So the yogis' Kechari Mudra is just this. No strain, not like way up. No. Just look up, close your eyes. Easy as can be. Nothing you can brag about, and therefore egotists don't see any value in doing it. But that is the genuine Kechari Mudra. And that's what he's talking about. Not look up and fix your attention between the eyebrows. There was one utter fake that came to America who taught his disciples they had to look up and cross their eyes. And I remember, actually, I was at the Ananda spiritual community, and one Sunday, both Kriyanandaji and I were talking, and I looked, and there was this girl who apparently was one of this character's disciples. And so she looked up and crossed her eyes and so on. There are some really insane people who say you've got to like put your eyes up and straighten more and more, and your eyes should flip. And your eyes are actually going inside. Oh, then you'll see what's inside. You understand? There are a lot. You see, in Tibetan Buddhism, they say stupidity is a daughter of hell. So just because somebody's dumb doesn't mean they're all right. It can mean they're of hell. And so that kind of stupid nonsense was told. And that isn't it. You just sit, look like so, close your eyes, let it be. Because what this does, this just helps you be aware of the Sahasrara. That's where everything takes place. Not something you will see, but that affects the subtle bodies so you can have that awareness. So it's very important. But that's what Kechari Mudra is. It isn't for a yogi. You see, that's why you can listen to yogis give talks or supposed yogis or supposed writings, and you can tell. I was talking about this with one of the sadhus just a day or two ago. We listened to something, and I said, you see, that shows he doesn't know real yoga. The whole context in which he spoke is completely divorced from the real thing. By the real thing, I mean Soham Sadhana, of course. So then, why don't I go to the end since we're already 10 minutes over the time? All right. Equalizing the inhalation and exhalation, moving within the nostrils. That doesn't mean doing it deliberately. Oh, inhale for so much a count, exhale. No, no, no. Automatically, when you're doing the syllables of so and hum in time with the breath, as it should be done, they become balanced out. And they become a motionless movement and also a movement that is not. You will have to experience for yourself, but it will happen. Awareness of breath will go. That doesn't mean necessarily you'll stop breathing, but awareness of the breath will pretty much grow. And I mean, not totally, because you've got to still be doing the Soham jump. But when you do it, you see it's up here in the head. And you're aware of the inner breath, you see. The outer breath is one thing. The inner breath, which is what produces the outer breath, that's what we're after in Soham Sadhana. And when they're equalized, then it becomes that transmuting something. I'm not even going to say movement. All right. With his senses, mind, and intellect controlled, with liberation as his highest aim. In other words, if you don't aim for the top, you'll never get to the top. So you shouldn't say, well, that little goal, and then finally that. No. You say that, and I will attain the little goals as I go on, but I'm not going to forget that that's where I'm going. You could say, be going on foot. You come to a place that's just wonderful, and you could live there forever. But you purposed, I'm going to get to such and such spot. So the wise yogi keeps moving onward. Free from desire, fear, and anger, such a one is forever free. Having known me, the enjoyer of the tapasya's offered a sacrifice, because God is seated in the depth of our consciousness. They often say in the heart, but heart, they just mean cardia, the core, you see. Let me go back to this again. Having known me, the enjoyer of the tapasyas offered a sacrifice. In other words, all the meditation you do, all the disciplines you do, they're offered unto God. At the end of things, they often say, Brahmarpanamastu. This is given to Brahman. Having known me, the enjoyer of the tapasyas offered a sacrifice. So your own consciousness and awareness becomes the sacrifice, as you could have a bowl of water and a glass of water, and you pour the water of the glass into the bowl, they become one. So in a sense, you pour your awareness into the infinite. Can't be described, but such a one is forever free. Having known me, then, and that way, the mighty Lord of all the world and the friend of all creatures. Now the question is, does it mean that Brahman is the mighty Lord of the world and the friend of all creatures? Or does it mean the yogi has become the Lord of the world and the friend of all creatures? It means both. The yogi becomes on the finite level what Brahman is on the infinite level. He attains peace. So thus the end of this talk. So thank you, and I hope we'll meet again for the next one.